Welcome to another edition of the Heavy Duty Parts Report. My name is Jamie Irvin. I'll be your host today, as always, and we are live today. Today is going to be a little bit of a different episode as I don't have a guest. Unfortunately, our guest today is sick. They do not have COVID, though, so it'll be a solo show, and we're going to talk about a issue that I think is very important to the trucking industry. But before we get into that, I just wanted to let you know that this episode of the Heavy Duty Parts Report is a live stream, but we have a podcast that we put out. So maybe you don't know that. Head over to heavydutypartsreport.com and check out our weekly podcast where we interview heavy duty parts specialists and also industry experts, and we talk about how to lower cost per mile for commercial fleets using high quality parts. So heavydutypartsreport.com, that's where you can check out the podcast. This is a live broadcast, so I am hoping, especially since today's a solo show, that I have some interaction from our guests. If you'd like to comment or ask a question, please don't hesitate to do so. I would appreciate that very much. Now, let's just get a couple things in place here. So this is our live stream. This is the Heavy Duty Parts Report. Now I want to bring up our banner. This is the subject that we're going to talk about today. Repair technicians say there is no technician shortage. That might be something that is a bit of a surprising statement. And recently, I've had some very heated comments. I have had some people use some pretty bad language to describe the latest episode that we did on the Heavy Duty Parts Report about the technician shortage, where we talked about ways to solve it. And I put out a poll recently to kind of get a gauge on how the industry is feeling about this issue. And so I want to talk about that first. So we did a poll, and this is the question that we asked, because what the repair technicians were saying did not go in line with what I hear fleet maintenance managers, repair shop owners, and other people in the industry say. So the question we asked is, if we raise the wages for repair technicians and parts technicians, of course, as well, would that solve the technician shortage? And we gave three possible answers. The first answer is yes. The second answer is no. And the third answer is it's complicated. Here is the results. 41% of respondents said it's complicated. 38% said no, raising the wages is not going to solve the technician shortage. And 21% said yes, it absolutely would. So the people who are saying that if we just raise the wages, we're going to solve the problem are in the minority. And yet, what I am seeing from the results is the people who are in the position of repair technician, many of them are saying, look, if you would raise wages, we would solve the problem. Therefore, there really isn't a shortage. There's just a wage issue. So you see the difference from a lot of repair technicians' perspective. They're saying, look, there isn't, they're not denying that there is open job positions, for example, where people are struggling to find enough repair technicians to come work for them. They're not really arguing that. They're saying it's not a shortage caused by a lack of people or a lack of interest. It's a shortage caused by a lack of wages. And so that's really what I want to get to the bottom of today. And I found it interesting. I reached out to a good friend of ours at the Heavy Duty Parts Report. We reached out to Aaron Picozzi. He's the president of the American Diesel Training Center. So he's at the heart of trying to find more diesel technicians to join our industry and help alleviate the shortage. And I asked him, I said, is there a diesel technician shortage? What's your perspective? And like I said, fleets and repair shops have been telling me for years that there is. And now I've got all these repair technicians commenting on my social posts about this and saying, no, there isn't. And so I asked Aaron, I said, how many unfilled positions are there today? And this was just yesterday. He sent me the email. He said, and I'm quoting Aaron Picozzi, there are just shy of 30,000 open postings for diesel mechanics on the website Indeed. It's hard to say exactly, but we believe this is likely 1/3 of the actual number of open positions in the United States, landing the number closer to 90,000 open positions at this very moment. It's the highest we have ever seen since we started tracking it in 2017, close quote. So thank you very much, Aaron, for providing us with that information. So if there's 90,000 job openings and those are all unfilled right now, it I just can't see how anybody can say that there isn't a shortage. So it's not about whether or not there is a shortage, it's about what's causing it. And therefore, if we can identify what's causing it, we can also perhaps come up with a solution, which was actually what I was trying to get to in one of the previous episodes when we were talking about solutions to the technician shortage. And all of a sudden, we got this firestorm of comments, both on YouTube and on LinkedIn. So let's examine this. What do fleets and repair shops say about the technician shortage, about the causes of the technician shortage? Well, I hear a lot of fleets and a lot of repair shops say they can't find quality people. The people who really know what they're doing, they all have jobs, and the prospect pool of people, even people that they would be willing to train or help get through the education process, there's just not a lot of quality people available. Repair technicians fire back and say, look, the reason you can't find high quality people to come join the trucking industry is because you don't pay enough and the working conditions are horrible. Fix those two things, and higher quality people would be more interested in joining the trucking industry. When you press this issue with fleets and repair shop owners, they don't see it that way. They think that their wages are very, very good and competitive. I personally have benefited from working in the trucking industry. My entire career, I have been able to earn an above average income. So, as many of you know, I'm Canadian, and in Canada, the average wage of someone with a 4-year bachelor degree is about $48,000 a year. Do not have a 4-year bachelor degree, and yet I have worked now for almost 20 plus years, earning far more money than that in this industry. So one of the arguments that was made by one of the people commenting was that people going to university don't want to come and work in the trucking industry. It's bad working conditions, it's low wages. Why would they do that when they can go to another industry, have a nicer job, nicer working conditions, and make a lot more money? I don't know that that tracks. I think that there's an opportunity for repair technicians and for parts people and for salespeople in this industry, service managers, all of the different, even the truck drivers themselves. I see a lot of the wage information. And once you have a little bit of experience, it is very, very easy to make more money than what the average person with a 4-year degree is making, at least here in Canada. And honestly, the difference between Canadian wages and Canadian living expenses versus US wages and US living expenses, the US definitely has lower expenses in most parts of the country. There may be some pockets like New York City or Los Angeles, which are much, much higher. But if you look at the average, the US cost of living is definitely lower than it is in Canada. But then again, your dollar always trends being worth more money than the Canadian dollar, and therefore your buying power is better. And when I look at what you can buy cars for, an example, or what most of your real estate prices are like, the Canadian prices for automotive expenses, for housing expenses is far higher. So maybe our wages are a bit higher, but our expenses are way higher. And so if you take out those disparities between the two countries, I think it's pretty much on par. And like I said, my experience has been that you can make really, really above average income for your education level in the trucking industry. So I don't understand why repair technicians are saying that there is an issue with low wages. What exactly are they saying? I want to read some of the comments that I've recently had. So this one person on YouTube says, listen, Heavy Duty Parts Report, you really fail to see the issue. They are not attracting anyone because the industry has colluded to force the wages down below a sustainable threshold. You cannot claim shortage of workers as an industry-wide problem because the problem is that the industry is not, insert expletive, paying enough. And the comments just go on from there on YouTube. Let's switch over to LinkedIn. People a little more professional on the LinkedIn platform. This is a perspective of a good friend of ours that works as the vice president at a company called VHub, Matthew Leffler. He says we have two challenges in the industry. And just so you know, Matthew at one time owned a repair company with his father that did mobile repair for the trucking industry. So he knows this intimately. He said, we have two challenges in the industry. One is technician retention, and the other is an aging workforce without a strong pipeline of new talent. More techs are leaving that are coming in. I certainly see that. Another person commented and said, I would agree that low wages are part of the problem in some places, but certainly not all of the problem in most of the places. The bigger issue we have locally here is that younger folks don't want to work in the trades anymore. They've been conditioned from a young age to believe that it is work for poor people or for people who don't have the education. This one is interesting. There's also an issue of working conditions. I have walked into a shop that were just a complete mess. No quality technician will work in a shop that is a dump. Look at some of the new dealerships that are being built. First class, neat, clean, and organized. If you as a manager have shops that are dirty and unorganized, the problem starts with you. Now, we've just had a comment come in. Joe, one of the industries where you can make a very good living. Just have to be willing to work, pay your dues, learn as much as you can, and move on up. Techs and parts sides, both. No pay collusion, in my honest opinion. Joe, thank you so much for adding your voice to this important conversation. See, this is the feeling that I have about the industry. I started off in my young life. Like I said, I got out of high school. I moved across the country. I went right into work into the industry. I didn't get a chance at an early age to go to university. And I am so grateful that I found the trucking industry. I put in my dues. And then, I got my master's in business when I started my own business in 2009 and took it from startup to a merger acquisition deal in 2016. And in those 7 years, that's where I got my intensive education in business. And so I'm someone who learned on the job and got all of my experience from those experiences. And I put my dues in. I worked for 10 years for the first company that I worked for, remanufacturing pneumatic controls in the shop. And yeah, it was working with your hands. It was a shop environment. But after I put in my dues, my wages went up. And I very quickly was able to make above average wages for my education level, but also even just comparatively speaking to other people with a 4-year degree. So I'm struggling here to see that there's collusion. And I agree with you, Joe. I just don't see collusion industry wide to push wages down. But I think that there is something to be said about working conditions. And I think that definitely there is something to be said about our industry's failure to promote and attract young talent. I definitely think there's something there. I think we've lost, like many industries, for the last 20 years to tech industries, to STEM industries. I think that we have lost to those industries, and a lot of really talented young people have gone there, and very few have joined the trucking industry. And that has got to play an impact in our future of how we solve this. And the trucking industry 20 years ago also is not the trucking industry that it is today. So maybe that's not all our fault. We've rapidly adopted technology and embedded it in every aspect of how we do business over the last, let's say, 10 years. And so now we have the opportunity to hopefully attract more people to the industry. This is not an easy solution. Like, there's no one silver bullet that's going to fix this. I want to side with the repair technicians and say, look, if you're working as a repair technician, I'm talking directly to you right now. If you've worked hard, just like Joe said, right? If you've worked hard and you pay your dues, learn as much as you can and move up. If you've done that honestly, and you're still not being paid appropriately, go find go find someone who will pay you appropriately. And if you're a repair shop owner or you're a fleet and you have your own repair shop, do competitive analysis of what the cost of living expenses look like in your area. Do competitive analysis of what technicians are able to earn and should appropriately earn, and make sure that your wages are in line with that. Now, repair technicians, you can't go in and expect with a couple years experience for someone to just pay you 200 grand a year. That it doesn't work that way. So in all fairness to the repair shop owners and the fleets repair technicians, you have to remember these are businesses. These businesses need to make profit to stay in business. So this is definitely where the repair shop cannot exist without the repair technicians. The repair technicians need repair shops to be there to provide them with a job. So this is a mutual symbiotic relationship, and we've got to work together as an industry because we are struggling to bring enough people in. And this problem only is going to get worse over the next 10 years as the baby boomers retire at a faster and faster rate. So I think there's work to be done on both sides of this equation. And we're talking about repair technicians, but I honestly think we can just say repair and parts technicians. It's kind of the same basic issues are affecting both sides of the business, the part supply part and the actual installing of those parts. Now, we also need to think about the working conditions. And I will second that. If the working conditions are poor, and I was a sales account manager, I got to see a lot of shops, and there is a big difference from the dirtiest shop to the cleanest shop. It's not like that is a narrow race. That is a wide spectrum of working conditions. And when I had my contracting business, I was out there on the tools. It wasn't fixing commercial trucks, but it was working on buildings, and it was hard physical labor. I certainly was a few pounds lighter, but it didn't mean that it didn't play or take a toll on my body, on my emotional and mental health. So in order to kind of combat that as the owner, I had people working for me. We did everything we could to provide, great tools, clean vehicles. We were mobile, so we didn't have a shop per se. But if I had a shop, it would have been clean. The environment would have been as good as possible. So we have to fleets, repair shops, you got to do your part. You got to provide working environments that are conducive to attracting more people. Repair technicians on the other side, you have to understand everything costs money and businesses need to be profitable. And depending on the scale and size of the business you work for, if it's independently owned, self-financed by the owner, they probably just don't have the resources that maybe one of the large truck dealership groups do. So you have to ask yourself, are there other benefits to be working for the independent service channel that you wouldn't find working for a dealership group? Repair shop owners, fleet maintenance managers, what investments are you making in training? Are you making it an environment where the tools are readily available, the training is there? Because I'm telling you, if you go work for a dealership, you get more training than you want. So the independent side of the business has to do their part too. So I don't see this as being, again, there's no silver bullet to fix this issue. There's no one thing that can be done. It's a multifaceted issue, and depending on who you are and your perspective, you're going to have very strong feelings one way or the other. Repair technicians are going to have very strong feelings about working conditions and what they perceive as low wages. Owners of repair shops and fleets are going to have a perspective on the difficulty to remain profitable in a highly hyper competitive marketplace with a lot of global forces that are changing the rules of the game almost daily. We've got to come together as an industry. So regardless of whether you're on the part side of the business supplying the industry, if you're on the repair side of the business keeping those trucks on the road and installing those parts, or if you're part of the trucking industry and you're running the vehicles, these three parts of the business need to come together to solve what we perceive as an industry as a technician shortage. I hope that I've provided you with some insight into some of the strong feelings that are going on about this, of some of the different perspectives of the individuals. And I hope I've given you something to think about, regardless of where in the supply chain you work. I will end my live stream today by saying that personally, the trucking industry, I view it as the backbone of society. Without trucks, this society comes screeching to a halt, and the amount of pain and suffering that that would inflict on people is almost unimaginable. So the trucking industry needs to be taken care of. And if you're looking for society at large to do it, that's a mistake. I personally believe in individual responsibility. We all play a role, regardless of where in the industry we work, to do what we can to improve things. There is a time for everything, a time and place. There's a time to air grievances and to raise difficult issues. If you feel that the wages aren't fair, you need to talk about it. I definitely am not trying to suppress that. On the other hand, expectations need to be in line with reality, and also we all have to look at what we can do to improve the situation on a personal level. If everybody in the trucking industry does that, if we all play our part, we make the industry better. More people will want to join us in that effort. And if you are in a situation right now where you feel that things are really, really not fair, you're not powerless. There are things you can do, and you need to take whatever action you can within what your abilities will allow you to do. I was a sales account manager. I was working in the parts side of the business. I launched the heavy duty parts report and have built a voice in the industry now, which allows me to be able to help people like you to also share your voice. So whether you're just commenting on a live stream, or you're coming on the show, or just reach out to me with my email, jamie@heavydutypartsreport.com. Maybe we can talk about these issues. Maybe we can put you in touch with the right people. Maybe we can get a conversation going that's going to lead to some sort of sustainable change. We can impact not just the trucking industry, but by extension, the entire world, because the trucking industry remains the backbone of society. So we've got issues and challenges to face. Repair technician shortage is one of them. What's causing that is up for debate and should be debated. And we definitely need people to continue to express their opinions, because that's how we're going to be able to come to an understanding of the entire picture, not just from our one perspective. So, okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Thank you so much for tuning into this live stream. I hope that, again, this brought some perspective. By all means, continue to give me feedback and let me know if I'm wrong about something. I want to hear from you. If you agree with me, I love to hear from you as well, because then that just shows me that I'm on the right track and we'll keep going. Next week, we're going to talk about augmented reality and training in the industry, because that's part of how we solve this problem, right? Better tools to train more people. And we're going to bring on some specialists who have new technology with augmented reality that is currently right now impacting the trucking industry in a positive way. Jim, thank you so much for your ongoing support, brother. I really appreciate it. Joe, thank you so much for being part of the conversation today. And thank you all to watching. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend.